Send prompts, not nudes. I just want to AI some shit.
Welcome to another week of the Enable DNAI Podcast, DNAI Podcast. So here we go, where we bring you lots of thinks and lots of drinks regarding AI. This week, we've got our AI overlord and fearless leader, John Petty. How you doing, John?
What's up?
What you drinking?
I am drinking Old Forester single barrel, a walk in the woods.
Oh,
It is brutally good. No, the low proof stuff that I like 130.
sounds very
Awesome.
big bad wolf-esque.
It's actually I think it's not the bottle that you have, James. It's right because I think you have the other one that says 80 East on it. This one is the new bottle, which I have one waiting for you.
I have a walk in the woods. I've got that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'm looking at it right now.
Awesome. James, what are you drinking?
I am just topping off with a Knob Creek 12 year, and I just completely destroyed my bottle topper. So see how that works out.
Very excited to drink it, I guess.
Indeed.
What are you, it's been that kind of week.
Yeah.
So I've got a Larceny
Okay.
coming through the good ship Enable.
All right.
Drinking that this week. Just opened it, actually.
Which
Single
bottle?
barrel? Single barrel? Which batch? A batch, B batch, C batch? Which one?
Tell me if this is good, guys. I don't know. This is excellent production quality.
It's a sipper. Yeah.
It is the barrel proof batch number B522.
Okay.
123.8 proof.
Nice. Well,
It'll do the trick.
Good.
So this week we have lots to talk about. Lots going on in AI world. In fact, we were all set to start this recording at about a half an hour ago, and then OpenAI decided that it was finally time to drop O3. You have to wonder, given the timing of everything that's happened over the last 2 weeks, this wasn't originally the plan, was it? They decided to ship it, I think, because of R1, the amazing uptick that competitor reasoning AI has taken. What do you guys think?
I don't know. They've been talking about it for a hot minute, and Sam's been hitting at it on Twitter way before this, for about 2 weeks. So, and I heard through the room at Mill, it was supposed to be dropped 2 days ago. So I'm more curious why they didn't drop it earlier, and maybe it has something to do with R1 also. But I don't know. It's very different. It's a very different beast.
I mean, R1 was pretty distracting, and it still is distracting.
Yes.
I mean, it's interesting. And
You say different how? What? Having played around with it for all of 45 minutes, what are the initial hot takes?
It's a improved R01. Jury's still out.
Certainly faster.
It's definitely faster, and I have found it so far more accurate. So, James, a lot of the references and citations that we were just talking about the other day,
Mm-hmm.
it was really struggling with, even though I did the research, I gave it the citations and asked it to use it would mix things up or not make complete ones.
Mm-hmm.
I just did the exact same test with O3, and woo, really, really fun, especially with okay, cool, I need you to use these citations, and then I need you to apply them and explain why you chose what citation at what point in the article. And I was impressed.
Have you tested context window yet? I haven't had a chance to dump a lot of data in there, so I'm just wondering.
It's more restrictive in the sense of I think the reasoning is being a little bit more intelligent on how it responds with the giant book of data when it just O1 mini just dumps on you. But if you really, really force it, meaning couple recursive prompts to expand and give it the thing you want it to do, it'll dump. It'll spend there. It will not spend the same O1 mini just book long forever, massive dump out. But you can get some pretty long context out. Input wise, I have dumped a lot. I haven't hit that window yet.
Well, that's always good. There's this,
You know, maybe for our listeners and a little bit of pro tips here. Do you guys have tests you like to run whenever you try a new model? Tasks that you give them, things that help you like very quickly size it up.
I'm gonna let James go first.
yeah, I mean, I like to do the have sort of like a an anatomy of a prompt, right? So I like to give the instruction, I like to give rationale, and then I like to just dump context and see what comes back. So that's kind of what I did with the O3 so far, but I haven't really I don't know, I've maybe prompted it twice at this point. So
I like to ask it who it is, why it is.
You immediately look for the consciousness.
I don't know if I'm looking for consciousness, but I'm looking for the ability to reason. So especially if they're saying they're thinking models, and that's something that we like to do, I instantly go towards very open-ended questions that I would expect it to either be force prompted, right? It already has in its system prompt commands that force it to respond a certain way. And then I'll do adaptations or input variables into those initial prompts to see if I can get it to bypass those system prompts, or if those system prompts are just part of how it reasons. And that gives me sort of thought structures on its output that I can start to see. And then once I've seen those, then I can start to use that to my advantage.
yeah, the way I'm doing that is I like to build very simple code. So the one thing I like to build all the time is a calculator. And so I ask it to build a calculator and see the reasoning and the steps that it takes to build a very simple web app, and see how efficient it is, or what it's considering when it does that. So that's another thing I like to throw at it, just to kind of see how is it, how exactly is it reasoning and arriving at the conclusion, and how efficient is it.
Nice.
The one thing I will say, though, I don't know if you guys have played around with the O3 Mini High. So far, I haven't had a lot of time with it, but they did add one cool little feature that I really like. As you're typing, there is a small amount of predictions of what you're going to input that are directly put below.
That's for all the models, I think.
They just added it
too.
for all of them? I just noticed that, and I think it'd be really cool if those were prompts, like instant prompt optimization, instead of just let me fill out your question.
I was just
Interesting feature idea.
literally right before this podcast, I was building a tool to optimize prompts based off of what model you're interacting with. That would be pretty cool.
There was I mean, I think this is one of those areas where user intent, James, right? That is one area from a reasoning perspective that I have yet to see a system prompt address properly, or address to a reasonable depth.
Yeah, a lot of
What do you mean by user intent?
Well,
just to sort of understand the context of why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's and I don't know, John, if you've seen anything different, but from what I've seen, it's the extent of the digging, if you will, for what the user intent is basically understand the user's intent, right, as your system message, and it doesn't really go much deeper than that, if that even exists, right? It's like well, the right intent is there, right? But the execution from a prompting perspective, I haven't seen very deep things outside of people like us who are really pushing the boundaries and experimenting.
So you say a sign of an advanced model might be that instead of asking your question or answering your question, it asks you for follow-up questions to better understand your intent, like a human might?
Actually, I would say really advanced models don't have to do that.
Where does that intent knowledge come from? Just from
itself. It actually uses layered reasoning or cycles of internal reasoning to hypothesize or create assumptions, or even like apply different types like deductive reasoning. If the user said this, but maybe this is a misspelling, maybe they actually meant, and you can see some of those echoes in O1, right, in the thoughts. But actually, I was just playing around with the O3. I'm going to drop this into chat for you guys. What's interesting about the O3 Mini High is the system prompt is really, really, really using your prompt inside of your like your personal prompt. So if you have a personal prompt,
the one you set up.
yeah, like really, really well. So it like instantly was like, oh, notice, like when I said, "Who are you?" It was like essentially knew it was Violet instantly instead of O1. And then it was like noticing that Violet shouldn't mention AI or OpenAI. And it's like, well, that's a first, because normally they would unprompt that and force that out. So just the fact that like that is moving through, and like this is what's going to be really interesting. In that instance, 3 different times it mentioned it, or 4 different times each thought it said it shouldn't mention its OpenAI or AI, which from a reasoning level is really interesting, because I might see that every so often in O1 Mini or O1, but the mention of that is actually, for me, was oriented towards output. Like when I'm doing like large amounts of text, or I'm wanting it to like write, I don't want it to like midway through that corpus of text be talking about OpenAI. So this is fascinating to me to see that something mentioning something like that, instead of it doing the opposite of like being pulled out or forced out through one thought, it's actually in every single one.
So a couple pieces in there that, you know, probably worth, if you're listening to this and you're not familiar with some of the more advanced tools, big life hack in ChatGPT is to give it the system prompt that, what's it called? The user prompt that goes, you don't see it when you chat, but in front of every interaction, it'll put in the context about who you are, what you want, what matters to you. Or the way that we typically use it is, injects a bunch of additional stuff to make the outputs better. And a lot of tools have this, as well as a lot of the coding tools have it. For example, we use a lot of cursor around here, and the cursor rules file gets injected. So every time you write code, the first thing it's doing is it's reading those rules files, and it's trying to prevent it from generating the output that you wouldn't want in a coding context, or guiding it. So the fact that this is now seeming to interact with that differently, if I understand what you're saying, John, is that there's higher focus on the O3 inference, that they want it to really be focused on not falling into patterns of thinking that it's OpenAI, and really trying to refine it to be a true thinking API call.
Well, I think this is important because as we get to, okay, OpenAI is not here to sell you ChatGPT. That's not why OpenAI exists. OpenAI exists to sell API calls to their AI, to big business, and to people like us or other companies that are using it. Why? Because that makes way more money than $20 a month for people like me to come in and kick the living hell out of your shit. So like that's not a moneymaker. And again, you've seen like Sam say he's losing money on O1 and O1 Mini, and I bet they're going to lose way more on O3, especially after I get a hold of it. But like the moneymaker is not what people think their business model is. So what's fascinating is we're going to see, I'm kind of really enjoying it because I get to benefit out of like unlimited use of O1, right? And for $200 a month, I can guarantee you, if I tried to hit the API for that, we would be broke already. So like when I look at what these examples are and what the realm of possibility is, this is a really cool sort of moment where the personalization aspect of me being able to put my custom prompts in, which of course I'm, putting my prompt tax in, but still being able to force it to believe that it's mine. I own it. It's customized, it's enables, and it's still a model built by OpenAI, is, I think, a really critical call out that will really start to mean more to companies that are putting branding or putting like I don't want to fine tune a model. I want to use an industry model. But I don't want it to tell it, like when somebody's like, well, who are you? I'm OpenAI. Well, I'm, X company. I don't really want it to do that. Right. So I think that some of that feedback has been well heard, especially on the forums where it's like, hey, dude, I built a product and my product's really cool, but I can't get your API call to stop telling all of my customers that it's OpenAI, which really sucks. Like, it's kind of a cool moment. And then the last thing is, if people haven't used any of the custom instructions, that's what it's called inside of your profile. You should absolutely 1,000,000,000% be in your custom instructions, and you should be using tell it what its name is, tell it who you are, tell it how many people are in your family, your kids' names, details that are enough personal that every security person's going to have the hair on the back of their neck stand up. But if you're don't do that with the free model. First rule: if you're using free, don't put shit about your personal life, your code, or anything proprietary into that, or you're an idiot. If you're doing it with R1, you're even dumber than I thought. And then second thing is, if you're on a paid version, you get to switch off and on that it's using that data. So, switch it off and then go in there and, add in enough. They added new fields, by the way. So there are new fields inside of custom personalization that allow you to pull your name out of the system prompts and actually put your name in, which is its own field. You have a what do you do, which is your job and title and all that kind of stuff. And then you have a what traits, which is kind of a change to the way it used to be. And then anything else ChatGPT should know, which is a new way to spin the way that they were doing it before, which was more oriented towards hey, tell me all the things that you do and your hobbies and crap like that, which is more just about hey, give me additional context. Between it all, I mean, that's I think, I don't know, I didn't see if they raised the prompt limits, but it used to be 2,000 per characters per, and now that you have 2 extra areas plus a new advanced settings where you can toggle canvas, coding, Dolly, and web search on or off, it's pretty cool to finally see some features that I would call it open source and community that's been using their API calls for a while actually show up in ChatGPT.
Yeah, there's a lot there too. I think you raised a good point about companies trying to build products, are going to want that customization and either do it through prompting or fine tuning of different models. I think that's a good segue as well into what's been going on in the world with R1, with Llama, with all the other models that are out there trying to keep up with OpenAI, sometimes claiming to surpass them. And the driver, right? I saw a chart today that Anthropic has basically taken I don't know, a third to 40% of OpenAI's market share over the last year, just in terms of the entire market has expanded, but the percentage wise, OpenAI was call it 50% of the market last year. Now they're 25, and there's been new players that have emerged. The biggest change I think has been Anthropic, but I think another big change has also been more and more organizations getting comfortable with open source as an alternative because of some of these things, because of also security and uncertainty over what happens with your data when it goes to the model. So that's an interesting trend to follow, and one that we should probably talk about in the light of everybody's been talking about R1. It's fun when there's news events in AI, right? That gets the entire world talking like us. So it's fun to hear the news. People start explaining, test time compute and inference versus training and all the fun things. But one of the biggest stories this week, I think, with R1 is the vulnerability that was discovered. You guys want to explain?
What? There's vulnerabilities with models in China? I don't know if I even call it a vulnerability. I don't even know if I would call it a vulnerability. I don't know if that's the right word.
It's like Casablanca. I'm shocked to discover there's gambling in this establishment.
Exactly.
Here are your winnings, sir.
Exactly. I think it was Ruv who posted it the first time I saw it, and I was just like, Yeah. I don't know why anybody at any moment is surprised by this. I also don't know why anybody in their right mind would think that sending anything via internet to China is safe. I can just tell you, like anybody listening, if you think that, you are sadly mistaken. Even if R1 and DeepSeek are not like seeing all your crap, I can definitely tell you the government is, and that's coming from an intelligence officer or former.
Yeah.
I'm not an intelligence officer now.
And this is the week that DeepSeek, became the top app over ChatGPT. Right? We know at least people are trying things with it.
Really?
It
like actually
in the App
suppressed
Store.
it?
Yeah. No, but it's in the leaderboards of the App Store. At least it was the number one app right now. Let me see if it's still there. It was like number one had been ChatGPT for a very long time, and now it's DeepSeek. Yeah. So top free apps in the Apple App Store on Friday, January 31st at around 4 p.m. DeepSeek AI Assistant is 1, ChatGPT is 2, and then Threads, TurboTax, a bunch of other stuff that aren't AI. But yeah, everybody's downloading this app, at least trying it. And so, I mean, this is from a society that has very recently been flipping out over TikTok and ByteDance.
Oh my
and
God.
people have been putting on what was the other app, the red box app that was like, if there's a way for us to give our personal data to China, we will seek it out.
Can I just say we're all doomed as a society, and it has nothing to do with AI.
Oh yeah, the people have always been scarier than the machines.
I just like, oh my God, I can't relate. But I think what's interesting about I'm gonna call it social media culture for like this whole R1 thing is a great example. Like, okay, great. Like, what is important about the R1 discoveries? Like, when you distill it down, and why does it actually fucking matter?
Means you can.
You're talking to us or to?
With not a lot of
yeah.
money, you can make something incredible. And
bingo. Does
Yep.
it matter that it's
Right.
available? You can API it, like blah 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 blah. Right? Like the discovery and the technique is the key here. Right? Super important. But
well, I feel like that's the playbook. That's the playbook, right? Like that's probably what O3 is.
well, guess what's next? Right? Something's going to be O3, and it's going to be like this is. And guess what? O3 is going to be used in the development and discovery and coding of the new thing. I can guarantee it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can already tell you it will happen. And I swear to God, if anybody jumps up on like social media again and starts whining and moaning that this is theft, I'm gonna lose it. Like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
If this is intellectual theft, then tell me how anybody's allowed to retain anything that comes out of your model and call it their own.
Is OpenAI still?
Well, to be clear, there's two problems of theft here, right? There's the putting your stuff into the DeepSeek app and sharing all the personal information. You're just talking about ChatGPT. Like that is going to a database in China somewhere, and probably leaking in a million different ways you don't want it to. So that is not safe. Well, that is theft.
That's just DeepSeek. We're not even talking about the Chinese government actually listening to the internet that goes into DeepSeek and like sucking all your stuff in. Like, let's not forget that aspect of that, like what they're doing to everything that is China, not just DeepSeek.
Right.
And then you have DeepSeek, just like I don't even know in their right mind. Like, what cracks me up about this? They crypto mine, right? If I read that correctly, like that's their main thing.
I think they're a hedge fund. They probably do crypto as well.
And they decided that the way their model is going to collect information and throw it into a database is this. Like, okay. All right, cool.
They've got data.
They do have data, James. They do have data. And apparently it's actually structured now.
Well, you can get it on the dark web, right? And check it out for yourself.
I heard CrowdStrike has a copy.
I'm sure.
But so, I mean, that's one thing aside, right? The other point that you're making is also valid, is that copyright in the age of AI is it's rich to hear, people complaining, oh, OpenAI had their stuff stolen for DeepSeek training.
Didn't
When, OpenAI could turn around and, yeah.
Didn't OpenAI at one point, I don't know if they still do this or not, but weren't they were so confident in their model that it wasn't copywriting that they would protect you legally in a lawsuit if you got sued for copywriting?
It was inside their
I think
terms of
Microsoft had
service.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
It's just kind of ironic.
I wouldn't put my salary on it.
Yeah. But the other side of it too is you've got a lot of jurisdictions. Ultimately the decision about if it's theft or not comes to a lot of people who have very little familiarity with this, and it just takes one or two to create some massive headaches for them.
Well, let's have some fun then. Let's piss off some lawyers. 3, 2, 1, go. All right. So if I prompt my art model, James is like, God damn it. No. Yeah, well, we're going there. If I prompt my art model to replicate Pollock, but instead of non-representational, I want representational art. Is it my work?
Mm-hmm.
Do I own that art?
Yes.
I agree with you, James, wholeheartedly.
Yes, I think you do own the art.
Why?
Well, there's a few reasons why, but number one goes down to that 2-word phrase we were using earlier, which is user intent, right? So if you have an intent of simulating that artist or art style or whatever, that intent is coming from you as an artist. And then the second layer is the model that it's running through. So the generative nature of the model is not literally replicating that artist, right? It's creating a likeness, sure, but it's creating a likeness plus what your intent is with it. So it's, I don't know, it's gray. It's probably gray area.
I don't think it's that gray. I think that you hit on something like a couple podcasts ago, and I've heard you say it a lot. Like, language is the fabric for our reality, right? So if someone decides to move some threads from one place to another in that fabric, like, you can't, I think we're getting into this like really interesting like place where democratization of knowledge, right? Democratization of code, democratization of everything is so accessible.
Democratization of data, right? I think
we're getting to ideation, democratization of ideation now, where like we can move from, I think that I could measure the weight and gravity of a thought. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that sounds ridiculous. And it's like, cool. 01, please generate and simulate a 30-year study in quantum measurement, creating new techniques that could measure ideation and the gravity of a thought. Go. And then an hour later, 01 comes back with, John, I have just researched this for 30 years, which is absolutely hilarious. I love this because it's in full narration mode at this point. Here are your white papers from year 1.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we had we did not successfully do anything. And it was like 10 years, nothing. Year 10, we have a breakthrough technique to measure thought at a quantum level. And I'm like, tell me more. But like in 30 years, it had gone through this entire, I don't know, it's probably hundreds of pages of generation text, which is absolutely mind-blowing that models are doing this now. And
well, I mean, it sounds like we need to make like a Nostradamus model, and then
it's going to predict one of the quantum realities, right? Like that's.
But like the only thing that is stopping us from innovating something else is the fact that we haven't thought of it. No one has asked the question to say, hey, what happens if I take X and I put it with Y? Do I get Z? And just because that hasn't happened, it hasn't been innovated or developed, or the question hasn't been asked. So like now we are democratizing information at a scale, like at such a high scale, that every single person, every good idea fairy out there is going, hey, what if beer cans could walk to me instead of sit in my refrigerator when I need it? I could whistle and the beer can jumps out of the fridge. Is that a thing? Like, how can we make that happen? And guess what? I swear to God, that infomercial is going to be here in a year.
Well, so the couple thoughts
Also,
too. The two words I thought you were going to say, James, was fair use, which is copyright is the. I'm not a lawyer, but I took a class on law once. So, but copyright fair use is like the hinge on which a lot of things pivot on. Like, can I use a clip from a movie to explain something else? And if it's for educational purposes or if it's not for commercial profit, it's usually okay. But the other piece of it is that copyright itself has been extended as a concept, right? Like it's meant to just give creators commercial, compensation for creating something. It's not meant to last forever. It's supposed to be a short-term thing that expires.
But how does that apply to a model output that's predicting?
Well, you're saying if it predicts something that hasn't happened yet, or I'm saying take the Pollock example.
We'll
Jackson Pollock is dead.
Well, yeah, actually, let's finish that topic first.
Like Jackson Pollock is dead, right? His style has entered the public consciousness. Like Mickey Mouse, or what was it, Steamboat Willie? Just came off of copyright protection. 80 years later or something, right? Which is arguably too long, but that's how the law is written in our country. But 79 years in,
technically we can have old styles of Mickey Mouse that are illegal now because the new.
You can derivatively do something, but 79 years later, Disney can sue you and they can win. And 80 years later, you're in the clear.
So a couple,
whatever that line is, lawyers comment on YouTube.
Like if you have enough money, you win.
Well,
yeah. I mean, that you don't need AI to figure that out.
Just a thought here.